Hey friends, Jen here. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to Homes That Heal. I am really excited. Today is going to be a very special show. I have invited a few of the ladies, or a couple of the ladies. I actually invited all of the ladies from my recent Banff, Canada trip that I was on a few weeks back. If you listened to a previous show, I talked a bit about it. If you follow me on socials, you can see a little bit about a couple of the activities we did, particularly something called a Via Ferrata, which was scaling the side of a mountain, which was a very challenging situation. But this trip in particular, life-changing for me. Definitely something I will never forget. It was a decision I made about a year ago to go on this trip. I didn't know any of these women. A girlfriend of mine shared Sara's information and her company called Soul Adventure Collective. And Sara puts together trips for women to go on that are adventure trips, but also kind of a spiritual connection, like ladies connection trip. So at the time, Alex was going to go with me. And then just shortly before the trip, Alex actually realized that she had a different event she had to go to in Sedona, so she wasn't able to join. So I ended up going on this vacation with 7 other women I didn't know. And that seems kind of silly or scary to some, but honestly, I do solo trips all the time, like just solo by myself. So I knew that I could get along with just about anybody, but if for some reason it didn't feel aligned, like I'd be okay just hanging by myself too from time to time. So for me, it was just about taking the trip, seeing Banff, experiencing a new place, stepping outside my comfort zone, doing something I don't normally do, which is go on vacation with strangers or with people you don't know. So I wanted to just stretch myself a little bit. Plus the Via Ferrata, the climbing of the mountain, was something that I wanted to challenge myself as a goal because of the paralysis on the left side. As you know, I've lost a lot of function, but regained most of it back over the years. But my left hand has struggled with some motor function skills, but I've really amplified my therapies and targeted some of my goals last year, started taking some stem cells. I got a bit more diligent on some therapies, my oxygen therapy, my pulse PEM therapy, and a few other things. I really tuned my nutrition into like primal eating or more carnivore style eating last year. That's helped tremendously. And I just felt like how fantastic it would be to accomplish the goal of climbing a mountain. So I signed up. That's what I did. And then fast forward a year, and it was one of the most epic weeks of my life. So today's show is with Sara from Soul Adventure Collective and with Amber. She's one of the other women who signed up and said yes to go on this trip. And then the other ladies, unfortunately, couldn't join us, but that's okay. We reminisced and chatted about them, talked about some of the memories, and I have no doubt that they're listening and we miss you. We were definitely part of the conversation today, whether you were on screen today. So just real quick, Sara puts together these retreats and her business is called Soul Adventure Collective. She walks through her story in our conversation, but basically she and her family traveled for a few years. She left her corporate job, very comfortable, cushy corporate job, just decided to hang it up. She and her family traveled for like 3 years, went all over the country and just experienced different places, things, and just really got a handle and knowing of what it is that she wanted to do. And she decided to put together a business where she could travel because she loves it, but also bring sisterhood together and bring women together in a space, in a container where we could connect and unite and be our authentic selves. And so we'll include all of her links in the show notes for you to find as well. I hope you enjoy this conversation. There's so much to take away from it. We talk about the why we signed up for it, our favorite and highlighted adventures, a little bit about the Via Ferrata, our biggest takeaways. And it was such a blessing to see them today. My heart is so full just from laughing and talking about some of the memories. And I just hope that you glean some wisdom from this, but also I hope it inspires you to maybe step outside your comfort zone. Maybe book a solo trip with yourself. Maybe book a trip with somebody that you wouldn't otherwise vacation with. Maybe look up Sara and sign up for one of her beautiful, amazing trips that she puts together. Iceland, Costa Rica, Sedona, Banff. She's all over the place. But I hope that you just take a few moments to sit quietly with yourself, go inward, and decide if this is something that would be of interest for you. Because let me just tell you, it absolutely changed my life in the most positive, beautiful, loving way. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Sara and Amber. Are you struggling with low energy, weight gain, hormonal imbalances, or heavy metal and mold toxicity? Do you want to learn more about anti-aging tips and creating more longevity in your life? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jen Heller. a wellness educator, infrared sauna expert, and home health consultant. In this podcast, Homes That Heal, I will teach you how to transform your home into a health and wellness sanctuary. Your health is your wealth, and I believe that your home should be your sanctuary space, loaded with the tools you need to thrive in your life, not just survive. If you want to feel fantastic and transform your life and home, grab a pen, let's dive in and create a home that heals. Hey, ladies, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Today we are having a special show with two of my friends from the Banff trip, Sara and Amber. So this is going to be a little bit different for listeners today. I've never done a group show, if you will. So this is going to be a little bit of an experiment, but I felt very compelled to bring a couple of us or a few of us or as many of us as together. Everybody was invited, but of course we can't all get under one roof just due to schedules. But I really wanted to reflect on our recent trip to Banff, why we took the trip, and the beautiful souls that we met along the way. And so I'm really excited to kind of dig in. We're going to try to keep things a little bit on task for everybody. We were laughing prior to hitting the record button, how we're going to try to walk you through a bit of a journey on the experience. So first of all, Sara, welcome. Thank you, Amber. Sara, you put this whole group together. This is your genius. This is your collective, the Soul Adventure Collective. And so I heard about you from my friend Alex, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I really want to first highlight you and walk through your personal journey, how and why you created the Soul Adventure Collective, and what it means to you to basically lead this group.
Well, my journey is pretty long, so I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible and just hit the main point.
Aren't they all?
But I know. I'm like, gosh, really, this started years ago. If you think about it, like the thoughts and like the kind of little seeds that get planted and grow over time based on your experiences and things like that. But ultimately, I was working full-time in a corporate role, working from home, thankfully, but it was very busy. I was working 60, 70 hours a week, doing the whole gamut, like you kind of hear in stereotypes, working moms, all that kind of thing. And I did love my job. I was making 6 figures a year. There, I had 10 weeks off and it was paid. Like I had so many great benefits with this job. And really, it wasn't a bad job. It was just something wasn't in alignment. I knew it was time for a change. And I'm one of those people that believes that there isn't necessarily one destination or one goal when you think of your purpose, your career, what you want to do, what you want to create. I think that each thing that you do serves its own individual person and purpose, and it evolves over time. So when I felt like I needed a change in alignment to do something that really spoke to me, I went through a series of changes to ultimately create what is Soul Adventure Collective now. So when I first started it, I thought that I was getting into it because I wanted to travel more. And I was like, what better thing to do than to host group trips? And so the first couple times that I did group trips, it was really more about the travel, getting together with people, just having a good time. I'm introverted by nature, so conversations were more difficult for me to get started with people that I didn't know. And that was something that I really wanted to work on from a personal point of view. But from the very first group trip that I did, I realized that what I was being called towards was not the travel. I mean, it might have been part of it, but the main thing was getting a group of women together to be there for one another, have experiences together, put each other outside of their comfort zones, connect on a deeper level. I would like to say more of a spiritual level, and really just grow and make those connections. Because that was something that was really, really lacking in my life, but I didn't necessarily see that until I went on that first trip and I was like, whoa, this is not just seeing the pretty lakes and mountains and sightseeing and things like that. This is like being together and all the things that you take away from that. So after that first trip, I was like, we're going to completely reconstruct everything and focus on the like almost the sisterhood element and the growth. And then the traveling part is kind of a bonus. So I think travel lures a lot of people that maybe don't realize that into the group trip, but then they leave the trip having the same realization that I had on that very first one. Like, dang, like that was fun, but the women that I was with is why I remember this. And the changes that happened in me is why I might do this again.
That is so true because you absolutely baited me with Banff. Amber, I don't know if you would agree, but you absolutely got me with Banff because it's so stunning and it's so gorgeous, much like your beautiful long hair that I just have to tell everybody if they're watching this, we were talking about this earlier. You have the most stunning hair ever. It's even gorgeous on the video screen than it is in person. But isn't that true? It's like, yeah, come to this beautiful place, but then have the most epic experience. And granted, Banff was probably one of the most stunning backdrops, places energetically you could go to do something like this. I mean, it's considered, I think, of energetic vortex.
Yeah.
And as I said, when we were walking around the first night, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a Bob Ross painting. Like I thought the same thing. What the hell is this for real? Am I like, oh my gosh, so like this is unbelievable. But that's so true. It's like you have to almost bait people to come for something, but then they're getting something completely different once they get there. So thank you for wrapping that bow up very nicely, Amber. I know you feel the same way I do, and you're feeling all the same things, but I'd love to have you share a couple things. One, how did you hear about Soul Adventure Collective? And then why did you decide to go, besides the fact that Banff is amazing?
I one day was scrolling just freely on social media and I came across someone who shared, I believe it would have been Sara's page and her advertising her soul adventure and that she had one trip, like one spot available and she was actually discounting the spot to fill. I don't know what happened, but anyways, I saw it and had no idea what I was getting into. Clicked on it. I started looking through just her page. She had several different retreats that she does. And the one in specific was the Banff. And I was looking at the photos and I was just like, oh my God, this is absolutely beautiful. I was a little skeptical as far as, first off, was it like legit? That's fine. Like, I don't even know who shared it, to be honest. Didn't know Sara at all. Didn't know Soul Adventure. I was just like, I'm going to take this win. And I reached out to her on social media and just was like, I am interested. I would like to take that open spot. And she sent me what needed to be done. And I read the itinerary because she kind of had like a blurb of what we were going to do each day and what our responsibilities were. And all that I saw that I had to do was to book a flight. And I was like, this is just like, all I had to do is book a flight and I'm going to this beautiful place and everything else is done. So I just was like, check mark, done.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That was the same for me. I'm like, oh, these are the dates I need to get to where I need to go. You gave a window of like, you must arrive at the airport between this and this time. I was like, okay. So I looked at flights. I'm like, I could do that. And all of my friends, like my mom, like Mark, my husband, everybody was like, wait a minute. So you just booked a trip to go away for a week to a place you've never been. You don't even know what you're doing, really, because I don't read things. People know me. Like I read the itinerary. Sara, you could verify this. It was like the week before we left, and I booked it like a year in advance. I don't even know what's going on half the time. I'm just along for the ride. But I was like, this is the simplicity I'm looking for. And Amber, I want to ask you, was there anything specific that you were hoping, like, I don't say the why, but like, why did you feel you needed to take a trip for yourself? Like, I'm very curious because I love taking solo trips. I have for years, like by myself. This was obviously not by myself, but to do something for yourself. This seems like this is outside your comfort zone, right? And you had not done this before. what was your intuition to do this?
So I had been wanting to do a trip with one of my girlfriends for a while, and her and I kind of were like, she lives several miles away from me, and her life and my life and our schedules just like never aligned. And I still was feeling that I was like wanting a trip. Like I was wanting to go do something, but I wasn't wanting to go just by myself. So when this came up, I was just, it's like, I'm going to do it because I felt inside like I was wanting to do a trip, like just for myself, like whether it was with my friend or with a group, but not by myself. Like I knew I didn't want to go like just, go
I'm going to die on
hiking and whatever else by myself. Yeah. So at least like I knew I was going with a group that like if something were to happen, someone was still going to be able to call my mom and tell my mom that like Amber just fell and broke her leg. Where if I was by myself, then I fell and broke my leg. I'd be waiting for the next hiker and hopefully I'd be happy to like have something on me and that someone would be able to identify me.
I think the comfort zone for me, or like what just gave me peace of mind on this, and I bet Sara, you're probably over there, like every time somebody books, you're probably like, ooh, this is cooking up, like all these girls, and you're probably looking at like who everybody is and how they all jive together. But for me, every time somebody asks me about, because again, my friend Alex, you're friends with Alex, she posted she went the year before. I saw the pictures. I'm like, this is stunning. I've always wanted to go. And so I booked it a year in advance. My other why was, as you guys know, and my listeners know, from my stroke from years ago, I was paralyzed for a long time and have just been chasing my health backwards and struggled for a few years, like really struggled. And these last few years, I've been just really pushing myself to get the motor function skills back into like really push myself into getting back into full function of life. And I'm like, wow, what better way to be back into full function life than climbing freaking mountains, right? Like that seems like a smart idea. Let's just put that on the goal. We'll come back to that later because that's definitely on the list of topics to chat about. But in my mind, every time somebody questioned or thought like would ask me about it and they thought like they were skeptical about who I was going with, the thing I kept coming back to is like, we're energetic beings. And I truly believe that we vibe at an energy and a frequency that attracts the people we're meant to be with and we're meant to attract for whatever reason, right? And I just kept thinking, the women that are signing up for this are like-minded women. They have to be, because there's no other way that they would do this as well, right? Like we were all at a place where we said yes to something because we wanted to meet and get into sisterhood. We needed more of something, and it didn't necessarily have to come from our inner circle. I wasn't worried at all about the women that were going because I knew that if they were willing to do something like this, they were probably my kind of people, right? If that makes sense. So I never really had any doubt, really, although I like you, Sara, I don't want to say I'm an introvert, but I do like things a certain way. But I just knew that we were going to become fast friends. And then, of course, that's what happened. So,
and I just have to say, that's the exact same way that I look at it too. Being the person who posts it is, people ask me, are you ever worried that people aren't going to get along, or, that somebody is just going to isolate themselves and not be a part of anything? And sometimes you do need to isolate yourself on the group trip and spend some time alone. But as a whole, if you look at the entire trip, it's never been awkward. It's never been like where I think there might be a problem with somebody. Whoever is meant to be there is meant to be there. And like you said, with the energy and the synergistic effects of everybody, it always works out. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it does.
I think we know why, right? I think we know how
we're looking at her.
That's interesting though. Yeah. Cause like if you had like a toxic situation, I'd be like, oh, tell me more. That sounds dramatic. But really what would probably come from that is, knowing the experience now, is the other women would probably step up and be supportive because that person clearly probably needed something supportive in their life. And I don't know. I just feel like what an interesting blender and collection of people of all different reasons why we're there. So I know for me, when I landed in Canada, so I met with Sana right away at the airport, and I actually picked her out. I knew she was there because she texted the group and she's like, I'm here. Da, da. And I walked past this restaurant, and I'm not joking. I looked at her and I instinctively knew, I'm like, I bet you that's Wasana sitting there, just by the way she was by herself and just kind of sitting there in and around this area, kind of where we said we would meet. I was like, she looks like the girl who would be on this adventure. And sure shit, she was. I just walked up to her and I was like, "Are you a son?" She's like, "Yeah." And so again, this like magnetic force of like attracting each other. We sat down and then she and I actually ended up rooming, when we got to the house or whatever. So for me, I was like not sure what to expect. You came and picked us up and we got in the car. And I have to tell you, and I don't even know if I told you girls this, maybe I said it or whatever, but like I was in the back of the SUV and I pretty much was in tears the whole ride to Banff.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, it gives me goosebumps. If you remember, Sarah, I told you you had this like fun vibe music playing, right? Like nobody was really talking at the time because we didn't know each other. We're like, hi, hi. And then we all got into this car, Tetris.
I think I'm right for your chariot away.
Yes. Yes. The chariot awaits. And then we're like, okay, how are we going to get these suitcases in here? I don't know. Mine rode in my lap. It was fine. But I was literally like emotional and like in tears streaming down my face. And I had my sunglasses on, which is probably why you didn't notice it. But I was just looking out the window and was just like in such gratitude. And the beauty of it was just more than I could even describe into words. But what was swelling up for me was just an enormous amount of gratitude for being there, getting there safely, being able to check out of work for a week and like literally disconnect, something I haven't really done for like 10 years, honestly. Being able to financially do this for myself. Like I've designed this life to do something like this. Like, I'm not kidding you, a swell of emotions. Like if somebody was trying to talk to me, I probably wouldn't have been able to talk. And I travel a lot. I do a lot of things, but this trip, for some reason, it was like, it really just got me right away when we were driving up and music and everything. And something you said too, Sarah, to me, like a couple of days in, like you love dramatic landscape and Banff delivers. Holy cow, does it deliver? It's heavy how much it delivers. Amber, what were you thinking when you were on the drive up? What was running through your head when we were headed to the Airbnb and you're like, okay, these are my housemates for the next week. Let's go.
Sometimes I feel like I'm the person that always likes to break that awkward silence. So I feel like I probably was the one that was like trying to interact and like bring on conversation. And to be honest, I never felt awkward. I was just really able to just be myself with everyone in the car and everyone just accepted me. And it felt so natural and just like it was meant to be. And I just opened up and I felt free to be able to do so. And it was just amazing. So I feel like I probably engaged in a little bit more conversation with the person next to me, which I think then also made a few of the others just comfortable and vulnerable. And some songs came on and we were able to move a little bit and sing a little bit. And I just like to break that awkward silence. So that was me. But hopefully I think I made it comfortable.
Yeah.
At the same time.
I would say, I feel like there's always one in the group, right? I was the one in the back crying, but no, not crying like sad tears, but
I know.
You were definitely, I would say, like, I don't say the icebreaker, but kind of like the fun, free-spirited wild child, so to speak. I mean, we were all dancing and having a great time, but yeah, you could tell
until like day 3,
yes.
here I think I'm like,
yeah,
stick this trip.
Yeah.
My life at home's a mad spot now.
Nobody knows. It's the beautiful thing about it. That was like
I'm just knowing myself.
We didn't even know. And that's what I loved about it is like, there was no like, here's my bio, here's where I'm coming from, here's what's going on. Like, it was just, here we are. Let's have a good time. We get to the Airbnb, which, I mean, couldn't have been more perfect in my opinion, just to kind of paint the picture. Like 3-story mountain house, townhouse, fire pit outside, gorgeous view. Basically, it was like a brand new place. It was perfectly set up for a bunch of girls, enough bathrooms. The bedrooms were spread out. The kitchen was centrally in the middle of the house. The view was stunning. It was perfectly located. Grocery store, Starbucks, coffee, like all the things were right there. We like stacked them on everything. It was just like so perfect. Like, okay, if I was going to picture a mountain house, it'd be like, this was it. Even down to the colors and the decor. Like, if you're going to do something like this, kudos to you, Sarah. I know you and I were talking about it. I was like looking at all that interior designs. I'm like, I want to take that home. I got to take a picture of that. I had this massive piece of amethyst, gorgeous piece of amethyst stone. Like, did these people read my expectations before I got here? Like,
You just had a Capricorn book the place, so you know what I'm looking for.
yeah, it was a high bar, but it met it. It met it. And that's a total testament to you. Obviously, you set these things up. So the house is fabulous. I think sitting around, like, was it the first night we all sat around outside by the fire, had some wine, had some tea, had some drinks, whatever, just kind of got to know each other a little bit. And I think that's where some of the walls came down, or a little bit about who we were, why we were there, what we were hoping to get out of the trip. But you could still tell there was still a little bit of reservation about sharing some things. But I'm curious, Sarah, like, when you're setting an adventure like this up, like, walk me through what goes into it, why you love this. Like, how do you pick what we're going to do? Because this was literally like itineraried out for us, even though there was some ebb and flow and flex. Like, how do you decide what we're going to do and why?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's something that continues to be more strategic each time. I feel like now I have it down, but the first, 3-4 trips I did, it was a learning process, like what would work best. And so what I do first is I pick the location. Obviously, like I said earlier, that is the lure that brings people in. That is how I fish.
Yes.
I'm like, all right, what places are really, really incredible, both from a visual, what activities, that kind of thing, but also from a more spiritual area. And just an example of that is the last few that I've done have been Banff, Iceland, Sedona.
Well,
Yeah.
very good.
So you think about like those places, and there's some kind of like spiritual connection in one way, shape, or form in many of the places. I won't say that all of them have that, because I also think that from the spiritual component or connection component, we can create that as the collective of women a lot too. Just by being in an area, you're bringing that energy, you're letting it surface. But Banff being an energy vortex was definitely in my radar for a very long time. So I picked the location, and that's how we lure people in. After I pick the location, I immediately start looking at the activities that there are to do in that spot. And I'm pretty old school. I print off a map and I plot places. I do all the research. I figure out where it is, and I figure out, okay, what can we all drive to that would be reasonable from our home base? Or do we have to have multiple home bases? Sometimes we do. And so I put together each day based on what makes sense in that time frame. And I usually pick about 2 activities a day, unless there's like a lot of small things in one area. So that's kind of my goal, because I don't want to overwhelm people. After I pick the activities and the adventurous things to do, then I plug in the more non-adventurous things to do. Like, would this be a good time to sit down and just have a fire, get to know one another? Would this be a good time to sit down and have a deep conversation, draw cards? And I base that off of knowing the trajectory of how we interact at a retreat. So like you talked about in the beginning, day 1, day 2 might feel a little awkward to some people. It's usually a little bit more quiet. You're trying to get to know people. You're trying to determine, how vulnerable am I going to let myself be? That kind of thing. But naturally, over the course of the first day or 2, while you're getting to know these people, you're also having these epic experiences with them. So that's why I like to pick these destinations where there's beautiful things to see, cool activities to do, because by experiencing these things that get all your happy chemicals going in your body and your brain and give you, adrenaline and epinephrine, all the things, the dopamine, you're getting all these chemical signals to your brain at the same time as these other people. There's no other way than to sort of bond with them over it, because you're all experiencing that same thing and your energy is so high. So I feel like after those first couple of days, you've had enough time and experiences to feel very comfortable the rest of the days. And so when I'm planning out these activities, I try to plan maybe epic spots or very beautiful locations on the first couple days, because that really opens your eyes to the area and makes you appreciate where you are and appreciate who you're with and kind of give that gratitude. In the middle, it can be pretty open. I can kind of shuffle things around, whatever works best, because at that point now people are starting to get more comfortable and they're willing to have slightly more deep conversations. I usually try to ask questions like, what is your intention? What do you see yourself gaining from this retreat? Things like that to kind of like prompt thoughts in people's minds. And then at the end of the retreat, I usually try to let it go out with a pretty big bang. In our case, it was the Via Ferrata, because at that point, you're very comfortable with everyone. You have already experienced all this really cool stuff. Now it's kind of like, what is going to be this epic memory that you're never going to forget? What is going to push you outside of your comfort zone and leaving you on that high at the end of the trip? And so that's kind of how I structure it and why I pick the activities when I do. And I also have learned that at the end of the trip, I like to try to get people to reflect a little bit on their experience, but I've also learned to sort of let it flow. A lot of times the group and the energy that we have and the things that we're talking about will sort of dictate the conversations that we have on that deeper level. So I never really structure the end in that way, because I think that we'll just cover what we need based on our dynamics, if that makes sense.
That all makes sense. That's brilliant. This is exactly why you're in your zone of genius. I think I told you this 1,000 times. That's exactly why Amber and I were like, yep, check. We got our airplane ticket. That's all we needed to do, because you put in so much thought and energy and the dynamic around it. It's just epic. It's hard to even describe. And what I also love too is like when you're saying like we just ebb and flow, like we just decided as a group that we didn't want to spend a ton of time sitting at restaurants. We'd rather be together at home, like chilling, grabbing some food quick, and then going back to the house, which everybody felt was good. Although we did hit a couple places like when we were in downtown Banff, but it was just the synergy of it was just you have enough room to make moves, but we had a lot of structure. Like we were up and out the door, early in the morning to see the sunrises, to see the epic scenery at certain peaks of the day. Like you had this like all plugged out. So I'm wildly impressed by it. And, I'd like to hire you to do all my vacations, but, Amber, I
Amber actually had me plan a vacation for her in Moab recently. Yeah.
That's awesome. I reached out to her because I was like, she's traveled so many places, and I ended up after this trip booked another trip for my birthday, and I reached out to her and I just was like, you've been here before. I'm going for a quick 3 days. Give me the highlight places. And she did an amazing job. And her timing is just unbelievable.
That is incredible. Yeah. It's like, that's how you're working in your zone of genius and in flow, when you can do stuff, when it all this kind of lines up like that. And even the weather, I mean, the weather gods were just like, everything was totally perfect, with the exception of the Via Ferrata day. That could have been a little bit better.
And like Agnes waiting to get into that tea house, that was pretty scary.
Oh, yeah. We got to get to that. Amber, I want to ask you, obviously, after all that tutorial, we literally, like I said, don't have all day to go over everything, but I want you to kind of walk me through. I know we saw like Emerald, like all the things, but what were your favorite places to visit and first impressions on day one going into the week? What were your thoughts about the adventures as a whole?
The first day when we got there, it was like Sara said, we kind of got checked into the house. We took a small hike along, was it a river, lake?
Moraine.
Right. And that was when you were you videoed us as we came around the corner just to be like, I want to see all of your faces. Because at that point, that was the first viewing of just the beautiful waters. And my jaw dropped and I was just like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And you can just sit and look and just be like, I just reflected on so many things. It just was the views. It was breathtaking. I was just taken away. And I would have to say just that first day was very impactful for me. The second day, I guess second full day was probably just the best because the view was amazing. And then you just knew it was just going to continue to just climax each day. So I would have to say that first day of just like seeing the waters and seeing the mountains and the views was my most memorable.
Yeah, I remember, as you guys know, and most people that know me know, like I like to ground. I kick my shoes off. I like to get in the water. I like to cold plunge. I like to have my feet on earth, even if it's freezing. And that day was pretty cold. I remember I like climbed my way down by the rocks. I know you guys were like, what is she doing? Why is she doing that? I remember Wasana, I looked up and Wasana's taking pictures. I'm like, yeah, she probably wants to have this on record in case I fall in.
It was
But-
like a mountain goat path. I was like, how is it doing?
like a billy goat, like near, near, near. And then let's remind you that I've got like a non-functioning left hand sometimes, right? So like, how is she going to get down and back up? But it's important to me because that's what I do. I like to ground. I like to be one with the earth. But I took this trip to get more aligned with myself. I took this trip to get a little bit deeper, dialed in inward and take this break. And I get the most downloads, if you will, or the most enlightenment when I'm connected, like when I've got my feet either in water, on the earth, and I can be quiet. And let me tell you, there is nothing quieter than those lakes and mountains. Like, holy cow. Like there's quiet and then there's like really quiet, like Amber, I remember when you and I were, when we took the gondola up and then I don't even know, like that range, that mountain range we were looking at or whatever. And you and I were just kind of walking and talking and about some different things or whatever. And we were just standing up at the very top of that, looking out. And even with other people there, it's interesting how respectful everybody is to like soak that in and appreciate the peace and the quiet. It is like deafening how it is. And then for me, I like to get quiet with myself because I think that's when we hear, if you will, what we're looking for. Like for me, I always say it's one thing to ask God or ask divine or ask for the direction or the messages. It's another to listen and actually have the courage to move and take action. And so this trip for me was to get in the peace, get in the quiet, be separated from the inner circle and the everyday life stuff, to get quiet with myself, to ask myself, where do I need to move? What do I need to do at this fork in the road that I'm in my life? And so there was nothing more quiet than those lakes and that peace and that frigid frickin' water on my feet felt like knives.
I can
But
say
it was
that
so good.
by you doing that though, and like putting yourself out there, by the end of the trip, every single one of us either grounded or, cold plunged or did something to find that inner peace. And I appreciate that I met you on this trip and that you were able to open me up to some things that I never did or never considered too. So appreciate that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I did feel that. And I feel like I know on days 1 and 2 and 3, a lot of you were looking at me like, why is she doing that? Or like certain morning routines and stuff. And then, one of my favorite, most epic, I think I wrote down what were my 2 favorite highlights, the Via Ferrata. But that actually I had 3, the Via Ferrata. But the fact that by the end of the trip, we were all like, we cold plunged, like we were talking about some of the things that I've incorporated in my life and why. I know, Sarah, you and I had some conversation in and around like wellness and spiritual routines. Like we got to learn from each other and actually see each other doing it. Amber, your free spiritedness to like jump on pole trees, like dance on the bridge and stuff, which I'm pretty sure Sarah has some epic video of.
You splashing in puddles.
Yeah.
Now
Just like
jumping in the puddles.
Yeah.
Wasn't it just a beautiful reminder of like, oh my gosh, we just need to like be ourselves, have fun, learn some new things and understand like, why does she do that? Oh, because look at the freaking smile on her face. She's having a freaking great time.
That having fun part is such an important part of these trips because how much do we actually do free, wild things when we're at home? You're at home and you have all these different hats that you're wearing and labels and the things that you're doing and expectations from your partner, your kids, your coworkers, yourself. Like you have all these things that are happening. And so part of the reason that these trips are so life-changing in some ways is because I think you mentioned it earlier, both of you, you didn't have to plan anything. You're just going carefree without expectations, without preconceived knowledge of most of the people that are going. Granted, some people kind of know each other, but a lot of people don't. So you're going with this blank slate. And once you get to that point where you're willing to be vulnerable and a little uncomfortable, you can see yourself kind of crack out of your shell. You don't have to be confined by all these things that you have at home. And you can hug trees and act silly and goofy and hold hands with a bunch of Chinese tourists videotaping you running out into a water in your bathing suit while it's snowing. Like, you can do all the things and you don't even care. You're just like, this is the most free I have felt in so long. And that is a huge part of these trips too. It's part of what makes me get emotional when I think about it, is seeing all these ladies and all these women that normally don't do things like that finally just let it go and be like, I can be me.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite highlights, or something I will never forget, is when on the last night we were sitting in the hot tub together and we were going around about what our favorite moment was. You know exactly what I'm going to say, don't you? And Alyssa telling Ashley and their sisters how her favorite highlight of the trip was seeing her sister be free and be herself, open up and have fun. Like, I don't think we were all like, I got tears right now just thinking about it. Like, that to me was like, yes, that is where it's at. That is what it's at. And they're sisters. So like, that's powerful. But for us to see and experience that, that was so good. That was so good. And you could see Ashley was like, she had cracked open a little bit and faced her fears. Obviously, she was afraid of heights. And there she is climbing the mountain behind me. Like, I'm leaning on her for help. She was the one afraid of heights. I look back, she's like, you got this. And I'm like, how the hell are you not freaking out right now? But that's where it's at though, right? It's like seeing each other crack open a little bit and be able to remember who we are. And like, we're here to have a good time. We're here to help each other remember that. So Amber, what was your favorite day in adventure?
The Via Ferrata was just like, at first, I had no idea what a Via Ferrata was. I think even when I looked at it on the itinerary, I was like, I didn't know what we were doing.
You saw 2 releases.
Yeah. Until like, you
in
said
fairness,
WhatsApp,
there was a
the
release
WhatsApp all of a
for.
sudden, she sends this video and she's like, girls, would everyone be okay if we upgrade our package? And she sends this like person just on a string. And I'm like, what in the heck is this? And, I start looking into it and I'm like, we are doing this. And I start talking with my friends and I was like, okay, now not only am I going on a trip alone with a group, but I'm going to do something that I've never done before. And I'm going to be just like walking on this line, having this hiking equipment on. And unfortunately, like obviously like the day and the weather and we can't like control all of that, but the weather didn't allow us to do the full package that we were going to do, but it still was like unbelievably challenging. Personally, it was just so amazing to accomplish something you've never done before. And the support that I felt from every single one of us, encouraging and pushing us from the front of the line all the way to the back of the line by, Sara and Taylor, from taking photos to capturing just our faces and the challenges was unbelievable. So the Via Ferrata would have to be
I love
the
that.
best, the number one adventure of the whole trip.
Sarah, what about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I love all of it for different reasons. I've obviously done the trip before, so I knew what to expect on a lot of it. The one thing that was different this second trip was the canoeing, which was cool. I really liked Emerald Lake. I felt so good there. The energy at Emerald Lake was fantastic. So I don't know if it was because it was new or because the energy at that place was just so good. But I really loved our whole experience there. We were canoeing. We were admiring the beautiful scenery. There wasn't a whole lot of people out on the lake. We were trying to finish what we wanted to do before a storm potentially came in. We were laughing. I mean, there was one point where I looked over and God, was it you, Amber? Somebody was singing Bad Boys, Bad Boys, and they're like aggressively canoeing across the lake. And then I look over at the other boat and they're like, just around the river, like singing Pocahontas. And I'm like, look at this. Just having the greatest time out here. And it just made me smile. And then immediately after that, we went to go do the cold plunge. And that was super fun. I absolutely loved that. So I think that experience for me was just, I smiled so much.
Yeah. Amber, I got to come back to something you said. I have to say the Via Ferrata, obviously I'll share a little bit, but Taylor, I mean, everybody needs a gorgeous content creator on the trip with them, right? When I found out who she, what she does, and then she's like the cutest little thing. And if I was going to invite the most beautiful photographer, content creator on my trip, who's super nice and fun, it would be her, right? And then there she appears again, verifying the fact that we magnetize the people we're meant to see.
Yeah.
But every freaking time I turn around on that Via Ferrata, or she's just like casually hanging on the side of the mountain, just like snapping a photo. She's like capturing the moment. I'm like, what is going? Like I'm trying to like hold my life on the side of this mountain.
Fires.
The first night though, when we were sitting around the fire and we were all just kind of like talking about just our lives and stuff. And when Taylor was like, oh yeah, like she just was like super freelance, like Baja. And all of a sudden she shares her Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, her life is just so amazing. And the photos and the things that she shares, I instantly became a follower of her. And now she just took photos of all of us. And
I know.
it was so great.
Real? Like this is totally for real. And then on top of it, I have the most dinosaur phone on the planet so that it doesn't take good photos. And they're so terrible. I have like an iPhone 4 or no, I think it's a 6, but and then the ease went away for that. It's like, oh, she's going to capture these beautiful photos and I don't need to worry about that. She's just going to, do it. But it was,
That is why I hire a photographer, because I don't want you guys to worry about anything. The schedule, the pictures, like it is there. It's done.
I know. It's more than all inclusive. It's like all encompassing inclusive. It was perfect. So my 3 favorite events, I think, were the night we all sat down. I think it was maybe night 3 when we were hanging out in the living room, like on day 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it was raining, kind of gross outside. So we were inside, but we all just kind of sat down. Like everyone just either had like a cup of coffee or tea or wine, whatever. And we just had like the most beautiful conversation. Like everybody just kind of opened up. We talked a little bit about like what was going on in our lives, why we were there, things that were going well, things that we'd like to shift and change. We were super supportive of each other, giving great advice. You had that gorgeous deck of cards. What were those called? What do you were talking about?
I still have them sitting here.
You're still here. Yeah. The elemental empath cards, like those are stunning. And we all decided to pull a card and like share. And I think that's just collectively, like that's a really great connecting thing to do. And so that of course is always the right message that we need to hear too. So then we shared a little bit about that, but I think that night really kind of took us to the next level of like, okay, now there's some trust, now we have a little bit of understanding of who everybody is and why they're here. So that felt really good to me because like I like those types of connections. And then I really enjoyed Emerald Lake as well. I agree. The energy there was beautiful. It was stunning. The water looked like Kool-Aid. It was just like, what in the world? I was just fascinated by the color.
And we dried off in like 15 seconds.
What I'm going to do,
that water,
the minerals of that water, just we walked out and the water just like was like evaporated instantly.
Yeah, it was just so interesting. But that is a testament to nature though, right? Like how we respond to nature. And the fact that we were just like quietly out there, some of us laughing, Amber's putting on a dance party show, singing for us, whatever. But I will say that probably the cold plunging, and to Amber's point of like, now that was what, day 4 or 5? I think it was day 5. No, day 4, maybe. Everybody's all in on Jen's cold plunging. Everyone's wearing their swimsuits now, which is great. And I never freaking
like
laughed
5
so
feet off of the path.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, like I'm right now laughing inside. Every time I think about that day, I laughed so freaking hard. I could hardly, like, I fell over in the woods laughing. Was it me with Sana? I can't remember. Amber, I don't remember. There were like three, like, we were just in the woods undressing, getting ready, people walking by. We don't care.
Yeah, like there was definitely like I was mooning someone for sure on the path because I couldn't find my bearings. I kept falling in that moss, and so like I had my pants around my ankles, but it was still a great night.
But that's one of the photos, because like once we were probably pure entertainment for any other bystander. And when that group came by and they wanted a photo with us, and then I think it's Alyssa, like she's got a towel around her and she's like, what is going on? She's like, oh man.
I was cracking up. I was cracking up so hard. And like, I think Laura probably was capturing the most. Was it Laura who captured? She was just like steadfast standing by, like just taking, or just like capturing the whole thing. The whole thing was just a shenanigans, but I never laughed so hard in the video of like, okay, she's like, okay, ready, set, go. I just like charge in the water. I'm like, okay. And like Alyssa's like arm, oh my God, I was laughing so freaking hard. I could not even breathe. I was laughing so hard. But then
we were listening to it in hindsight, and there was like somebody who screamed really loud. And we had to watch it like 5 times before we realized it was with Sana. And she's like,
rocks were so slippery.
Yeah, the rocks were slippery, and it was like we underestimated. We thought it was going to be sandy. And then I think we were trying to like get in and get out because again, they kept talking about this like looming storm, you know. Oh my God, that's definitely a highlight because to Amber's point, like you guys were all joining me in my crazy, which was so fun. And I was laughing my ass off because of how much fun we were having and free spirited it was. And then the group, like we had like a fan group from another country that wanted to be Instagram famous with us. And that was hilarious. And I think just the level of free spiritedness of that was like, that just reminded me exactly why I took that trip. But then also, of course, the Via Ferrata being the last day, pushing me out of my comfort zone. And yeah, that was an interesting adventure for me. The weather gods were, you know, I would say that was bittersweet. I could have done without the sleet. I could have done without the snow and the rain and the fog and the ice. But I also feel like there was no way I was going to be able to continue beyond the point that we went because my body was gassed. And that between the elevation and the fact that we were moving to the left versus the right, and my left is my weaker side, I was
made a good point though for the mountain man though, when you told him, you're like, I did that wall, like the test wall.
Training wall. Yeah.
Yeah, like the training wall. And I think he was like, that's a great point. Because like how we were climbing on that test wall was completely different how we did most of the Via Ferrata.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I didn't plan for that, but that's just life, right? You just learn as you go and lessons. Sarah, you and I had a few conversations around it. We planned it as much as we could. They were super accommodating. They could not have been more gracious and accommodating to give me the information to understand what the carabiners were. Could my hands do it? Yep. I talked, you know, like we thoughtfully thought through everything that we thought would be an issue. And then of course it was like, if you can do the training wall, then you should be fine. Well, I hopped up on the training wall, get through it. But that was because we were moving to the right and my right is my strong side. And then so everything was like, okay, green light, let's go. And I was not worried actually at all. I was not worried. I was geared up. I remember standing looking at it from that lodge and I was like, huh, that's bigger than I thought. Like, that's not just a little hill. That's actually a mountain. Okay.
But doesn't that happen in life? You look at whatever obstacles in front of you or whatever you're about to face, a big change, and you're like, dang, that's a big mountain.
Yeah.
Until you get up there and you're like, holy shit, I just climbed the mountain, you know, like.
Yeah. We took the gondola ride up and then I still was feeling fine. The rain was a little murky. I had to take my glasses off and I was like, okay, that's okay. But as soon as, we got on the ropes, clipped in, we started moving. I wasn't 15, 20 feet up going up. And I was like, oh my God, I never even considered the thought that we'd be moving to the left, right? Like what that would feel like and that I would have to rely on my left. And I'm not gonna lie. Like very early on, I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like I should just say something. And then Paul, right? That was our guy. Was that our mountain man, Amber?
That was yes. Yes, it was.
Paul was our guide. And fortunately, he decided to stay right to my left and said he would stick by me. And I remember looking at him and I was like, so I underestimated this. Like, didn't think this through in the fact I thought we'd be going straight up. I didn't think we'd be going at an angle. It was tough. It was honestly one of the most challenging things in my life. And I know that there's plenty of pictures and people who found me on socials, saw this as well. Like I got halfway up and I didn't think I could keep going. I was so taxed and my body was like not happy. I was bruised literally from finger to like my entire body was just totally bruised and gassed. And I remember looking back at Ashley, who was right behind me, and she's afraid of heights. And she's like, you got this. You got this. And I was like, okay, all right. If she can do this, I can do it. And then I was like, Paul, out of curiosity, how does one get off the side of this mountain? Like, does a helicopter come in? Like, what happens? Like, if I tell you I got to go. And he's like, no, it's actually not that easy. And he explained to me what happened. I was like, that's embarrassing. We're not doing that. Okay, let's keep going. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I think just overall, like we got to the top. I again was emotional. Amber, you came over to me to take a picture and I was like crying, like emotional. I was like emotional basket.
I have a raw photo with you and your complete emotion just on the end of a cliff. Essentially, I think it was like our stopping point. And so I just came and snuck in and I took a photo with you and you're just, yeah. Oh, and I felt bad because you were taking in the moment, like when we hit that landing. And then I grabbed the photo and you were like crying and I was like,
yeah, I just could not wait to get to the top. It was like, I'm doing this. This is one of the reasons why I said I was going to do this. Like I knew mentally I had it in me, but my body was just like, I have to find a way. I have to find a way. So I pretty much climbed that mountain with my right hand. By halfway up, my left hand was shot for sure. It's amazing what the mind can do when you ask for grace and patience. And you ladies were way more than patient. I mean, I'm so grateful for not only just the support and like the sisterhood that I needed. Like I felt like you guys were all like literally lifting me up, even though we were all hanging on the side of that mountain. There's absolutely no way on planet Earth I could have done that without the support of that group. And then knowing that you guys, I think it was maybe Alyssa said it, or I don't know if it was Laura, but somebody had said like they wanted it so bad for me too. Like they were willing to they were just like hoping every time I stopped, they were like, oh no, is she, so it was just, yeah, it was a beautiful experience. I can say I will probably not sign up for another VF anytime soon. However, epic full circle trip for sure. That was definitely a highlight. Amber, any other memories or takeaways from you that you want to share?
You highlighted the cards. I think the cards were great just because a lot of us had not seen them. And, Sarah, I think you brought in good points just because you're like, you use those in your daily life. You come across like, a roadblock, you don't know what to do. And you're just like, sometimes I just lay these out and I'll grab a card and it opens your mind to other avenues and other perspectives and ways to take the challenge that you may have in front of you. So I admired that day and exposing us to the cards and how you use them in your life.
I'm so glad you were able to take that away. I really do like using different cards.
I never had. So
yeah,
it's like,
that's one of the beautiful things about this. Like you said before, like we learn from each other. And I think that taking the time to step outside of our everyday lives and our everyday circles to, as you said earlier, like push yourself to try something new and to see what else is out there. I've been using cards for a really long time too, but there are things that I took away from you guys and like just different life experiences. Like, oh, okay, you can do things differently. And that's how we learn and we grow. Also decide things that are no longer serving us. Like I know I implemented some things coming back from that, like getting a little bit clearer on priorities and certain things in my life that were maybe energy sucks to just say, you know what, life's too short. We don't need that. Like that served for a bit, but that chapter's closed. So I got a ton of clarity from the trip. That's for sure. And a lot of things moved itself into place, things I was searching for from an answer standpoint. Like, think the universe shifted and kind of moved me in a direction where I needed to go. But same question to you, Sarah. Anything like favorite takeaway? And then obviously you can share how people can find you to experience one of these beautiful trips as well.
I think with every trip, there's always favorite activities, there's favorites, conversations, but something that I realized is the biggest takeaway for me every time is just that sense of being able to be vulnerable, be authentically yourself, and coming together as a community of women. Like, why don't we do that more often? I always think about that. I'm like, yeah, we have our friends. Sometimes we don't get together with them as much as we want anymore. And sometimes a lot of the friendships that we have, or at least I'd had, were friendships that I've had for many, many years. And yes, I still value them, but just like people change individually, so do your friendships. And I think as you get older, sometimes you just need to introduce new relationships too, because you're evolving and you're changing and you're growing. And, it's kind of like they say, you have your old friends and you have your new friends. And I think sometimes your adult friends you make for different reasons than you might have made your younger years friends, if that makes sense. And I mean that in the best way possible. But we lived full-time traveling for 3 years. And in those 3 years, our family, not just my husband and me, but my kids, we had to really learn how to make friendships based on our values and be able to determine like who those people were and who we wanted them to be. And I think that seeing all of that come together, seeing people come together and being able to create relationships with people you never knew before is just my biggest thing. I absolutely love it. Like, we're sitting here talking like people who have known each other forever. And we literally just met a month and a half ago. Yeah.
But that's the divine about it. Like, that's what I can't even articulate that into words, right? Like, isn't that interesting how we feel like we've been friends for so long, right? And I know some are in Wisconsin, like some of us are not that actually far apart from each other, but I don't know. I just feel like we have to step outside our comfort zone, meet new people, be open to new relationships, be open to new friendships, and be really excited about what they can bring to your life, because I can't imagine my life without this trip. This trip will forever be I don't say a once in a lifetime trip, because I hope to get back to Banff. Mark, my husband, is like, what do you mean you're going to Banff without me? That's what I feel like I got to go back with him, so I hope to visit it again. But this by far was a pivotal point in my life. I will never forget this trip. I will never forget the friendships that were made on this trip. I know, Sarah, you and I have talked about some different things that we're going to work on together and maybe do some other collective work together. And Amber, I mean, you and I are soul sisters for sure. We figured on day one, we're like, okay, we're walking on parallel lives here.
Oh, I love it.
Absolutely.
We had a connection like right away.
And I think it's great though, like, Sarah, you just build such a great community even after. Like, we're still all staying in touch and kind of keeping each other updated on our lives, things that we encountered and talked about, where we are now, now that it's been a month and a half since the trip. So certainly friendships that will probably last for a very long time, whether it's on WhatsApp or we're reaching out to each other on Facebook or social media platforms or, personal. I know a couple of the girls that were on the trip, like, even for you, Jen, you're not that far away. And so, hopefully we all get together at some point outside of this trip.
We need a reunion. Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like a reunion trip. Yeah. And I do want to mention too, Sarah, obviously I know you've got like the membership groups. You have places for us to like hang out and do things together if we want to stay connected. Because I think that was the thing. I was like, oh my gosh, this time went by so fast and we're all friends. And like now everyone's getting on these planes and going back to their respected lives, right? It's like, how do we stay connected? So you can follow each other in socials. Of course, we all exchange numbers, but you also offer a collective group where we can hang out and chat and talk and stay in sisterhood. So we'll have all of that in the show notes for everybody too. So if they want to find you and how to book one of these amazing, beautiful trips, it'll all be in the show notes and people can find you on souladventurecollective.com, right? That's your
Yep.
website?
Yep.
Yep.
And
Yep.
pretty much all of my socials are the same. They're Soul Adventure, I think Soul Adventure _ collective. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it's just my name, Sara Koppa. I don't have anything special on there. But
Oh,
I just shuffled the cards. I don't know if you heard me. I was like, shuffling cards. So I thought I would pull a card before we're done. And
yeah, please.
see in my mind, like what did we encompass in this? What did we learn from this? What's important? What do we take away? So I am just going to pick a random card at this point.
Yeah. And I should mention too that we tried to get all of us ladies together, but of course, schedules did not align for everyone. So shout out to all the gals that couldn't get on the call today or whatever. But this has been so fun. And I cannot wait. By the look on your face, you're going to read the most divine card.
I believe it, but oh my gosh. So it says community. Can you see that? That's crazy. Isn't that insane?
Unbelievable.
Connect with others, support, give and receive. And it has 5 women all standing in a circle, hugging each other with this beautiful artwork, happy faces.
Oh my gosh. That could not have been more perfect. I'm not surprised at all. That reminds me of the photo that we took in St. Agnes, or was it St. Agnes or Agnes's tea shop?
Yes.
At the top of whatever mountain that was probably the coldest I've been in a really long time. That was freezing.
It was so warm. We were stripping off clothes, and then we got to the tops of that lake, and like this Arctic wind came through across the lake, and we're like,
Amber was pretty much like in my sweatshirt. Like she was like, I want to get in. She's like, I want to get in. She's like, can we just huddle? It was so freaking cold. We stood in line for that tea, but then we got in there. We all huddled around in that like hut of a house and enjoyed the most delicious tea and pumpkin loaf bread I think I've ever had in my life.
oh,
And I posted to the group the other day. I'm like, does anyone else want a piece of pumpkin loaf right now? I do. But that picture looked exactly like the photo that we took with our tea, right? Like that day, like that's what it's all about. It's the sisterhood. So I cannot thank you guys enough. I literally could do this all day. And I appreciate you so much for taking the time to do this in the middle of the day. Like I said, I was hoping that all of us could get together, but we will do a reunion of some sort. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you, Sara, for putting this group together in this trip. Like I said, trip of a lifetime. Anyone that is looking. What's that?
I said, I'm so happy you all came.
Yeah. I just think that it's the most, I know you're living the most epic, glorious life of traveling, bringing women together. This is what you do for a living. That is, in my definition, the best way you can design your life, create your life around what you love. I applaud you for that. I think that's amazing. Amber, you brought so much joy and fun and inspiration to my life since then. I don't know how to twerk. I don't know how to dance like you do. And I don't know how to jump and hug trees. But let me tell you, every time I look at those pictures, I smile because you bring so much light and brightness to anywhere you go. So
we'll get you on board with those things at the reunion trip. Okay.
Yeah. So,
like some training.
I was like, I'm going to stick to the old wives sage one that walks around in grounds barefoot. That's going to be me. Amber's going to bring the fun factor. I'm going to bring the grounded energy. Let's bring it down. So
We'll be good.
Amazing, ladies. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you. Love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Wasn't that the most beautiful, fun conversation? You guys, I literally could talk to these ladies all day. I just was lit up. I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're just listening, but the smile, you could not wipe the smile off my face. Just seeing these ladies just brings me so much joy. I absolutely love them. And Sara was right. We absolutely feel like we've been friends forever. These connections and bonds will be definitely intertwined forever. And I'm just so grateful for the experience and their friendship. So thanks again to the ladies for joining me today. If there's anything that resonated with you, I know we talked about a lot of things. I just want to remind you over on the Jen Recommends page, A lot of different ways that you can bring in my favorite tools, tips, and wisdom for bringing healing modalities into your home. The holidays are coming right around the corner, and no better gift, in my opinion, than the gift of wellness. So whether it be on the home, health, or books page, those are all great places for you to look at gift ideas for the coming holidays, as well as just some simple ways that you can bring more health and wellness into your home. If I had to pick a few faves off the top of my head, it would probably be the Balu weighted blanket. I seriously could not live without that on my bed. The sunrise alarm clock is high on my list. This is also for everyone. Seriously, get rid of your phone in your bedrooms and get yourself the gift of a restful night's sleep. Plus, it's great for kiddos. I don't have to set my alarm often, but when I do, I have mine set to birds chirping. So that's what wakes me up, and it's glorious. I love it. And another great gift idea would just be any of the books on the books page. There are many fabulous to choose from, but I think my ultimate favorite is always going to be The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. That book changed my business, it changed my marriage, honestly, it changed my entire life. And foundationally, it's just a game changer in and of itself. Bob and I are actually great friends too, and I think he's going to be on the show here in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that conversation. Bob is the absolute best. If you don't know him, he's been an author for over 40 years, I think. He has a ton of books, and he's just a great person to speak to. So stay tuned for that. So hop on over to the site, jenhellerlifestyle.com, and look at the Jen Recommends page. If this episode resonated with you today, please hop over to Apple or the platforms to write a review. I appreciate you so very much. It's the way the world goes round, and this information gets in the hands of the people that need to see it. Okay, friends, wishing you a fabulous week. 'Tis the season for good friends, good family, good food. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next week. Cheers to health and happiness. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. This helps me expand my reach to other health and wellness enthusiasts. If you're interested in purchasing a Clear Light sauna, have a topic request, or just want to connect with me, please head over to my site, jenhellerlifestyle.com.